to the second Sports Analytics Club meeting of this semester. I missed the first one, my first ever miss ever, because I scheduled a meeting and I forgot I had class. So that's my fault. Picture right there on the left is Wolfpack Nation when we beat number 3 Louisville on Thursday. That was kind of nuts. If you were at that game, we had a big comeback. Let me mute one more thing. All right, here we go. So when you get the chance, sign in with the sign-in form using your phone. Just scan the QR code and we'll play a quick Kahoot. It's only like 8 questions this week. All right. And there's a code. They added QR codes on Kahoot, and I kind of like it. I haven't seen that before. So we'll get started. See, there's 21 in the chat. I'm not going to play because I'll embarrass myself. So that'll be when we get about 20 people, we should be good. Cardinals choke. Oh man, 13 seconds. That's a good one. I like that. We got 17. Jeff Walls with the L's. That's Louisville's coach taking an L. Anyways, all right, last chance. Speak now, enter or forever hold your peace.
I mean, I'm a fan of the team. If you can make the names as long as you wanted, I would have named myself Packers Special Teams.
Okay, yeah, that's fair, I guess. Anyways, here we go. Question number 1. I did not make this trivia. What's his name that always makes it made it? So who holds the NFL postseason record for receiving touchdowns in a game with 4? It's broken this past weekend. Gabriel Davis caught 4 touchdowns in that Bills game for absolutely no reason. Just went off. Fantastic. Kansas State's Ayoka Lee broke this Division I single game women's basketball record with how many points last night? They were playing against 15th Oklahoma. And as of like 5 minutes left, she had outscored them. She scored 61 points. We held her to 20. The team that held her to the least was like UT Martin. They held her to 10 because they ran a boxing or a triangle and 2 on her, and she's a 5. So which NBA MVP candidate will miss 4 to 6 weeks with an MCL injury? Lots of basketball this week because that's what's in season. So KD, so he's out for a little bit. We'll see how that affects him in the MVP rate. Which school upset number 4 ranked Purdue in men's basketball on Thursday? Illinois, Michigan State, Rutgers, or Indiana?
Well, one team got them when they were 1.
Indiana nabbed him. Moving right along, question 5. Which NFL team is not in the conference championship? The 49ers, the Chiefs, the Bengals, or the Bucks? Bucks. What a crazy end to that game, and I guess all of the games this past week. Who's the NBA's all-time leader in points for now until Steph Curry invents a 70-pointer and just goes his whole career making those? Kareem, Karl Malone, Kobe, Michael Jordan. Yeah, it's Kareem. Question 7, which NFL kicker did not make a game-winning kick this weekend because literally everyone else did? Matt Gay, Evan McPherson, Robbie Gould, or Harrison Butker? Did y'all hear what Evan McPherson said to Joe Burrow right before he was like, I'm going to go win this game, seeing the AFC Championship? Then nailed that kick. NC State women's basketball was down how many points going into the fourth quarter of their comeback win versus Louisville? Too many is not the correct answer, but like it is an acceptable answer. 14, 19, 7, or 17. The Louisville team's good. Haley Van Lith had a decent night. They're big. Cochran had a really good night. So hopefully we don't have to face them again to the ACC championship if we have to face them at all. They were down 14. Anyways, podium, third place, perfect score, Hayden. Nice stuff. Second, I can't make this go any faster. Jeff Walls, which is ironic because he lost that game too. And in first, Zach. Good job, everyone. Jordan and someone else came in fifth. I couldn't read it. Anyways, quick announcements. The Cubs literally just sent me something about their internship coming out. So I will send that out to you guys sometime this week, if not beginning of next week. Just wanted to let you guys know that's on the radar. Next, we want to talk a little bit about our end of the year projects as I introduce our speaker. So this semester, we're going to be more into actually doing sports analytics instead of just learning about stuff. So today we're going to learn about where to find data. So one of the best things that I've learned recently in the past year is the SportsDataverse, founded by Saiem Gilani. He's here to speak to us today about how he kind of came up with the idea of SportsDataverse, where it's currently at right now, where he sees it going in the future, and just some of the different things that it has. I met Saiem on Twitter, and I was posting stuff about women's basketball using his HoopR Package, which is for women's basketball scraping from ESPN. He's like, hey, I like your stuff, keep going. And it really encouraged me to, just keep actually doing sports analytics stuff. So I wanted to give him a chance to talk more about what the SportsDataverse is. So Saiem, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Appreciate you. Can you allow me to share my screen?
Yeah, I got you. All right, try again.
Hold on. It's a link to the slides. Cool. Full screen, come on. There we go. Cool. Yeah, so basically, I don't know if you guys attended the Carnegie Mellon Sports Analytics Conference, but this is since their videos aren't online, I'm going to just basically briefly go over what the actual SportsDataverse is. But the idea is that it is essentially a group of packages centered around sports data to make it super accessible for research for like people like you, both amateurs, professionals, like any teams that are just trying to get started and building their own data warehouses. This is a sports data accessibility project, basically. Trying to make it much easier for people to actually get access to a bunch of data and make it easy enough so that they don't quit because they have to learn a bunch of programming to do everything. And so that's basically how we're going about it. Finding good data sources. We've primarily been like plumbing ESPN, but there's a lot more out there that we've been steadily working through, both in Python, R, and Node. I think the most extensive support is in R, just because there were already existing packages out there that I recruited and or built or like modeled everything after, that made everything a lot easier. And it's sort of where I got my start in general within the open source data, like open source package development. I started working on CFB Scraper in 2020, like February. I had just started it was like my last semester of grad school at Georgia Tech. And I basically was writing for Tomahawk Nation. It's an SB Nation site covering the Florida State Seminoles. And it's where I live. So I was just like, all right, perfect. I want to do some analytics. I'm going to talk about this stuff. And from there, I started like working on CFB Scraper, went to Sloan, won the hackathon there with a group of super smart guys. And that was very interesting. That basically like encouraged me to keep going. And because like I didn't know if I was going to be good enough to do any of this stuff, to be honest with you. Like I went to school for grad school for analytics, and yes, the goal has always been to get to the NBA or like into sports in general, but you don't actually know if you have a shot until you're knee deep into it and you're like, all right, I got to start putting some projects out there so that people can see my body of work. And that's what you should do. You should develop the skills, start working on projects, start answering interesting questions, and people will notice. And so while I haven't actually officially started working in sports anywhere, I've built so many interesting things that I have stepped into a lot of interesting rooms and turned down a lot of interesting things. I actually currently work at Deloitte as a machine learning engineer. I used to be an actuarial analyst in healthcare and medical malpractice. And I've worked at some interesting startups that have actually gone on to be successful, which is great. Very varied background. I've lived many lives already, but it kind of was always the goal. Like you should keep it in mind. You should always work towards it. Whether you may not get the job you want or a job that's like adequate for you at this point in your life. And you should still continue to build skills that are useful generally. That's just my 2 bits of advice. And so like I started working on the SportsDataverse once I saw like, okay, if we do the college football stuff right, why can't we do the college basketball stuff right? Like I know that NCAA HoopR was people were complaining about how the data repository doesn't get updated often enough. And Luke Benz is excellent, but he also didn't have like a live access to the data in general. And so I originally submitted a pull request for NCAA HoopR. It took too long, so I decided to make my own package. It's literally how it started. That, and I wanted to make a companion package to Jared Andrews' KenPom PY package. So I basically started it as KenPom R, and then it morphed into becoming a full college basketball or men's college basketball and an NBA stats API wrapper. And so this basically turned into an effort of, hey, how do we avoid this exact situation from happening again? Where I'm like, I want to make contributions to your package, but it is hard for me because you are busy. Like I want to help you keep it together, but I want to help improve it. But how do you make sure that it doesn't rely on just one person to accomplish everything that goes into package maintenance? And sometimes like that's not even the goal. Sometimes you'll see a package on GitHub, you're like, oh my God, this is awesome. If this was still active and like maintained. And so that's basically how I came up with the idea for the SportsDataverse initiative. Basically to create a bunch of packages that are meant to be like long-standing utilities that you only need to know the name of this one package for, say, women's hockey or soccer. There we go. That's the one. Like World Football Art, state of the art. Everybody uses it. And it's basically just a group effort to unite everybody behind like a single organization, essentially, like so that we don't just let things fall to the wayside. And it's basically working towards making this community a lot more accessible, a lot more inclusive, a lot more diverse, and like just supportive. Because like you see a lot of people on Twitter who are like elder statesmen of the group who've been in sports analytics from like the very beginning, basically. And they talk down a lot, and it's just like, that's not helping anybody. And so it's sort of in response to that as well. It's like, this is as much a community as it is anything else. And I'm pretty proud of the stuff we've done already today. Like we've managed to make over 250 gigabytes of data like available for instant loading. Like it goes as fast as your computer can handle. Like, and that's, for me, 2 minutes to download, 20 seasons of data is not bad. Like it could be faster, but that's not what's going to stop you from continuing your work. Like this is like weeks of effort saved on a single developer because somebody decided, hey, we should work together to do this part. We can all do our individual research, but we should try to make the access to the data a lot easier. And so I'll explain what some of the packages we've worked on. Officially, the ones that are on CRAN, the original repository, are cfpfastr, HoopR, WeHoop, FastR Hockey, and World Football R. And we actually have a SportsDataverse package that will be submitted to CRAN shortly. Like the actual, we have our own verse package where you download one package and it downloads all 5 or 6 or 7, however many will wind up being in there. And there's also a parallel SportsDataverse Python module where you can pip install SportsDataverse. Works pretty much identically. I've designed it to be very language flexible so that the same code will work essentially with very little differentiation, as long as all right, in cfpfastr, I want load CFB play-by-play season 2021. And then in Python, it'll be SDV package college football, the function load CFB play-by-play. And yeah, in R, if you're trying to go for the NFL data, go use the NFL FastR, NFL ReadR. The NFL verse is basically the exact model we have copied off of for all of our packages, because they did such a good job, and it's become I literally won a conference research paper on the back of their work. Like it was that good. I wrote a paper on their work and developed a bunch of things exactly modeled after what they were doing. And so that's the top standard of as far as sports data packages go. And it's very similar for men's college basketball, NBA. These are all ESPN data sources, but if you need access to data quickly, this is a great place to start, and it'll get you going immediately in whatever sports we have available. And at present, we have women's college basketball, men's college basketball, WNBA, NBA, college football, NFL, as well as Premier Hockey Federation data, as well as NHL data. So at least 8 major sports leagues. That's a solid start in any direction if you want to use these for your GOAT talks packages or presentations. And so the basic idea of how we're going about making this super easy for end users to understand how to query data very quickly, without even having to know necessarily, look up the documentation every single time. You can just guess the function name based on what you're trying to do. And so if it's starts with load, build, update, the data is coming from a data repository. Otherwise, it will come directly from the data source listed. So if it's ESPN, it will be coming from the ESPN website and you're querying their API. NBA will be NBA.com. NCAA will be one of the NCAA websites. And the basic idea of how normal sports packages, any API scraper works is it gives you a direct client to the actual API of the website. And that works, but it takes a lot longer to both understand how to query all of their data. Because you have to basically learn how their schedule system works, what their IDs are, and then you have to cycle through them. And what we've done to make it very easy on the end users is we did that part. We made it super easy, and now you're just downloading a file. And that's what this is indicating. Instead of, it gives you access to the same functionality as the normal package, normal API wrapper, but in addition, it gives you much more data much faster when you use the actual loaded data. And the data repository is updated every night. I'm pretty sure I have given Billy so many notifications in his email, like just trying to keep up with every single day it's being updated. He's getting a notification. And like, that's just how it is. That's how we make sure everything is up to date every single day that we have games playing. And so that's the basic idea. Here the SportsDataverse packages in Node and Python, they're just named SportsDataverse, and they have individual sub packages. It has college football, NFL, NBA, WNBA, and these are still pretty rough around the edges, if I'm being honest. Like, just because I've spent a lot more time building out the R universe, because there's a lot more coordination involved because there's more people involved. And so that takes some work. But if you are interested in, if you have JavaScript skills, if you're one of these people, you should definitely check out Annie Tran's NFL Nerd package, because it has all of the sports betting information for NFL. And if you know how to mess around with that data yourself, or mess around with JavaScript yourself, she made it very easy for you to pull data for other, pull lines and team information for other sports. And in the R world, we have cfpfastr, HoopR, WeHoop, World Football R. I'm co-author Baseball R now. Hockey R actually has been subsumed by Fast R Hockey. And so these are both basically been combined, and this has become defunct. I should change that. And we're actually going to use cfpplotR by one of my co-authors on cfpfastr in our next tutorial. That's basically where we've gotten so far. We have an NCAA package in the works, like a full every single sport that the NCAA website has. We're working on that right now. That's being led by John Edwards and Akshay Ayaswaran. And I also have a big update coming to RecruitR before, fingers crossed, before National Signing Day. The punt R guys are great. Game Zone R requires a subscription. And if you've ever seen one of these fourth down probability models, CFB fourth is where we basically have that's basically Jared's project, where he's got the Twitter bot running. It's excellent. He modeled it off of Ben Baldwin's, and they do excellent work. Here's just some links. Follow the SportsDataverse, sportsdataverse.org, cfpfastr docs, and then there's Game on Paper for live advanced stats modeling that we do right now, currently just for college football, but I have a version on in development that is every basketball sport, at least every basketball league, and a lot more, to be honest. Like, it's just a matter of finding the time, finding a stopping point. So before we go any further, does anybody have any questions about the general idea and what we have?
On the previous slide, you mentioned that you have recruiting data.
I cannot hear you.
For college, or for men's college sports. Is it just men's basketball and college football, or does that include the other sports, i.e. like baseball?
I'm sorry, I had you mute. I had my entire volume muted for a second there. Can you repeat your question? No, that's on me. That's on me.
Oh, good. So on the previous slide, I think it was, so you have men's or RecruitR, that package. Does that include more than just men's basketball and football for recruiting?
No, it's just those two. It's basically anything I can get from 247 Sports.
Gotcha. That's my thought. Thank you.
Yeah. If you know of any other places where I can find recruiting data on other sports, that would be super helpful. Because I don't even know. Huh?
Top Drawer Soccer. I can send a link in the chat.
Heck yeah. All right. I'm writing that down because I honestly don't know. So is that like international?
It's a combination of international prospects and American prospects for college recruiting on the men's side, and I think they have the women's side as well.
Super interesting. Didn't know, like that makes sense that that existed, but I'm not super into soccer myself, so I don't know.
It's very hard to find if you don't know what you're looking for. So
Good deal, man. I appreciate that. Like, cause like we have like an entire section of our Discords dedicated to, hey, we should look at this site because it has stuff we don't have anywhere else that I can find.
Yeah, I'm gonna butt in for a second. I mean, this is kind of one of the things that we've talked about as a club. It's like, hey, we want to share ideas back and forth. Siem's really done really well of saying, hey, here's stuff that we have. Can you add to this? Bring this in here, there. This is a great example between him and Pat right there of, I didn't know this website existed. You did. Thanks for letting me know. You can use your area expertise. I know a lot about soccer. I know a lot about lacrosse. And we can use, other people can do their programming and stat stuff and be like, poof, now we have all this data available and someone can use it somewhere, whether that's internally as working with a team, such as a college team, or just saying, hey, I wonder why all these recruits for lacrosse are coming from Pennsylvania or wrestling coming from Iowa. Like, it makes sense to some people, but other people might not know that information. And it's really nice to share across that little boundary.
That was the other like mini upside to this entire endeavor is like, hey, what if we brought people from all the different sports together and had them talk to each other? I wonder what would happen. Because like a lot of times, like you'll have basketball people or baseball people, they won't know each other. And so like they don't share ideas, and the cross-pollination of ideas is like so big in research. I don't know why we try to do it more. And so like this, it's like an opportunity to both do some good deeds, to make some friends in different areas, like to help you widen your, like broaden your perspectives. That's huge. Just knowing what's being done elsewhere, like huge.
Wasn't one of the big Data Bowl finalists last year like an expansion from soccer?
Yeah, because it was like that possession-based one, right? And Beige. Oh, Big Data Bowl, like NFL?
Yeah,
I was thinking Big Data Cup, my bad.
Yeah, it was something to do with like the spacing in between defenders versus when they were guarding the wide receivers. Like that's something that they use all the time in soccer, but because people don't talk, they hadn't even thought about that in football.
Because that last year was the receivers DBs one?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I definitely saw that Costa and Ron Yurko did a project together on like ghosting, and I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. They both are very into
yeah,
both stat and soccer. Like, yeah, they're super nerds. Anyone else? Come on, I'm here to talk. All right, cool. Yeah, definitely check out Game on Paper if y'all are into college football. Like that, Akshay killed it. I don't want to claim any credit, to be honest with you, because he did that. Yeah, so do you guys want to work on cfpplotR real quick?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I basically adapted Jared's introductory tutorial and switched it from Pac-12 to ACC, because come on, who's trying to, like, we can boot
the
Pac-12
best football conference, the ACC.
Yeah. ACC. Yeah,
Says the guy from Alabama.
Oh yeah, you are from Alabama. I forget that all the time.
Hey, we're all about the Wolfpack in this house.
All right. Fair enough. So if you don't have a cfpfastr installed, you can install it with install that packages cfpfastr. This is all in the repository. Hold on, my bad.
Yeah, so if you guys want to open up an RStudio session and code along with, that's fine. You just may have to download the packages. If not, you said the code is in the repository or something like that.
Yeah, hold on. I'm sending the link right there.
Oh, perfect. So you can go back and check it out on your own time and then manipulate stuff. Hey, what if I change this to be this color, et cetera, whatever. Feel free to do either one of those things, but also while you're coding live, you might as well ask questions.
Amen. Yeah, because like, to be honest with you, this is the first time I've used it. Like, this is the only extent to which I've used cfpplotR, but it is just so obviously very useful that I'm like, I haven't done tons of like public analysis these days, but if I were, this is where I would start now. Like for any
And you
sports.
don't just have to use it for football. You can use it for basketball. Just what I've been doing recently is basketball shooting charts. It works the same across the sports as long as you have school names.
Yeah, because because we used ESPN, they're all the same. Like they're spelled exactly the same way. They have the same abbreviations wherever they are, and so it works out nicely for the most part. And so here we're just pulling play-by-play data using cfpfastr, pulling the team information so that we can get conferences, and filtering it to Power 5 conferences. And so let's see, it's pulling an entire season, filtering it to week 1. How long is it going to take? Okay. 8 seconds, something like that. All right. Now we're going to take this play-by-play data, group by the offenses, and then create some summary statistics for rush EPA and pass EPA, as well as getting a count for each. Then we're going to join it back to the main data frame with by team info. And so and then we'll get a preview of the data. And so here we see, all right, Alabama, Arizona, rush EPA, number of rushes, pass EPA. Okay. That makes sense. And so now we're going to plot this data. We're going to do pass EPA on the x-axis, rush EPA on the y-axis, just so we can see who's good at both. Like, do your quadrant analysis. Wish I'd done this beforehand. Honestly, I didn't know this took this long. And so here you see, all right, here's where everybody is with their giant logos. Because, you have to start out with making scatter plots with team logos. I don't know if you know this, but that is important to your sports analytics career. People yell at us all the time for it, and honestly, I'm just so over it.
NC State
actually
on the top middle line, in case you were curious.
Yeah.
At about 0.04.
There we go.
0.4.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out what the logo was. I was like, I forgot, y'all. Has it always been this logo?
We've had a block S. It's kind of switched back and forth. I feel like that's the one we're kind of just going with now. So
I mean, I remember tracing it when I was in school. Like I was like, yeah, the NC State logo is easy.
Yeah, back and forth.
And now this is basically going to allow us to highlight only the what is it doing? Oh yeah, we're going to highlight the ACC teams. And so basically we're doing an if else on color to the conference of ACC. Otherwise it goes to black and white. And so now you see, all right, we can see all the other Power 5 teams, but we've highlighted the ACC teams only, which is excellent. Awesome. It's great work. And so you can do this. Now you can make this, facet this 5 times and get all 5 conferences. And you got yourself a nice little diagram so you can see, you can make a nice little Twitter thread out of it. Not bad. And so and obviously this is like the bare bones theme black and white starting point for ggplot. And I'm pretty sure this has been the starting code for the CFB scraper and cfpfastr packages for the longest. So seems fitting. And so now, what does that say? Warning in PNG, blah, blah, blah. Known incorrect srgb plotR, whatever. And yeah, now we're plotting it actually with bar charts, which is great. And they're in the team's colors. I'm pretty sure you can add the logos to the bar plots as well, but in this instance, it's not necessarily the most helpful. And so he has chosen to plot it along the x-axis, which honestly, that's beautiful. That's great. Huh. Wonder why the aspect ratio is like that. This is looking blurry to y'all too, right? I'm not just losing my eyes.
A little bit, but not much. Also, notice how UNC is a lot lower than NC State. We love that.
Max on the hot seat.
Yeah, man. Mac Brown sucks.
Mac is whack.
There you go. There you go. That's how you do it. Oh, and yeah, now we get player headshots as well. Like it makes so many things easier just using the ID of the player with because we're always using ESPN data, it's accessing that data directly and allowing you like full access to everything that was going on. Oh, and this is, hold on, let's switch this to conference and make sure we added play-by-play to, yeah. Boo. Oh, whoops. I hate you. Okay. Fine. All
Going
right.
back for a second, just in general, to what we were talking about a little bit earlier before Saiem started talking. This is something that you could very obviously use for your presentation at the end of the semester if you decide to do something college related, whether that's football or basketball, or NFL has a package that's very similar. I believe that just got submitted to CRAN, which is like the official place for packages. So it's called NFL plotter. It works basically the same exact way as this does. So feel free.
We literally copy them as much as possible. Definitely do that.
Yeah. So feel free to like take other people's code and then change it a little bit and say, hey, this is my code now. That's basically how coding works.
This is mine now. I made this.
I'm the captain now. So,
yeah.
I mean,
it's a great thing to do. Like, and give credit whenever you steal like huge chunks of people's code. Like, I used this guy's example and I worked off of that. It was super helpful. Like, be gracious with how you attribute people. People really like that. Like,
yeah, that's why we talked about that beginning of the semester is always give credit to your data source. And the same thing as he just said, if you stole a lot of code from someone, say, hey, I was inspired by so-and-so's work. This encouraged me to do this. And more than likely, they'll respond and be like, that's super cool. I like this. That's exactly how.
Because like they didn't share that code for no reason. Like they put it up there so you could use it, and they love when you do it. Like, and so they want to know about it. Like, it's like about openness. Like we're trying to help you, but we also want to know when we do help you. And so yeah, like that stuff. It also like puts you on their radar, like because some of these people wind up being important at some point, and like in actual teams, they're like, oh yeah, I know this guy knows a lot of things I do because he's looked at my code. Or this, person, I don't know, like. And so yeah, the same attributes that apply to ggplot, they have equally made it very simple to create GT tables with it. And so it's the same concept. You see the team logo, conference, it allows you to plot that. And then we can do the same thing with headshots.
We haven't talked much about the GT package, but if you ever get a chance to play around with it, Duke had some of theirs in their projects that was very nice. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me and I'll tell you as much as I know about it or point you in the direction of the one tutorial that's fantastic for it, Tom Mock's tutorial. So
Tom Mock is amazing. He's a hero. Like, yeah, great guy.
So between GT and then ggplot, you can make all kinds of tables and graphs, lots of which like you actually see in articles like on ESPN and whatnot. Like I've gotten to the point where it's like, okay, I see how this is. I kind of know what kind of theme they use.
Like they're putting ggplot on TV. Like that's nuts. It is happening. Like anytime Brian Burke, he makes those like and Seth Walter, they make those pass rush win rate plots, and we've seen that on TV now. Like, yeah. Anyway, it happens all the time now. It's actually become a professional skill, and because it's so simple and easy to use, and like has a consistent grammar of how to generate a plot, making a very clean format for it has become production worthy, which is awesome because that makes life easier for a lot of coders. And yeah, you can basically use it for any of the same things you are using it for ggplot. Excellent package. Like Jared Lee, great guy. He's basically our biz expert who does a lot of the things that I wind up not wanting to do. I'm like, he's been always my person. I've been like, hey, can you make this for me? Like, because I have an idea in my head, but I'm like, I know you are so much better at this and you'll actually do it right. And I won't have to like cry while in the process of making this. So that's that. I have one more from the actual paper I wrote using the HoopR package. Will require you to have install a couple of packages, but basically we're going to look at top 30 players in field goal attempts or 3-point field goal attempts, and I think we can do it for 2021 now, right? Cool. And so basically using this HoopR package, querying the NBA API for this season, for the league dashboard for player stats, it'll give you a bunch of like basic box score stats. Work.
In the meantime, does anybody else have any more questions they want to ask?
Yeah, like I'm here. I'm showing y'all how to code some stuff real quick.
Yeah, feel free to type in the chat if you don't want to say it out loud, and I'll read it if that sounds good to y'all. Or you can unmute, obviously, and say it. Someone asked, what kind of work goes into making a package? That's a great question, one that I've actually had a couple times.
Actually, yeah, it's a good. Billy will soon know for sure. Because he's already building some interesting packages that I'm supposed to review. But basically, you start. One of the things you need to do is you need to understand how there are a lot of different kinds of packages. For one, most of the ones that I have developed have been like an API wrapper or a scraper for a sports website. And I imagine if you're talking about this here, you are interested in sports as well. But the basic idea for an API wrapper package is you need to understand how their pages works and what data you want to pull from it. And so you develop a bunch of functions to scrape the different areas you want, like whether it be team stats, player stats, game by game stats, play by play. And so you basically, you map out what their API is, how to get the players, how to get the schedule, and then you create enough tools so that anybody could first wrap it, be able to generate their own data sources from it. Basically build an entire pipeline around it. That's to make it relatively complete. Then you need to document it. And I think that's probably the thing that most people get tripped up on, because the code for a package is actually a little bit different than the code for just a regular R script. So you see how this is just all right, plain, I got some functions, I'm doing some data analysis, and easy peasy. It's just a script, you run it, it'll work. But in order to make it extremely portable, what you need to do is add a bunch of documentation to it. So you get these Roxygen tags, which is basically just a shorthand for making explicit what this function will do, what imports it takes. I'm importing from JSONLite these two functions. From dplyr, I'm using these 10 functions or whatever. And you make sure all of the dependencies are there, and you have to make that part. So you have to like learn what all the different tidyverse package functions are, which package they belong to, and provide examples. You have to tell it what it returns. And then you give a title and a description, and then you wrap it in a function. This part's relatively straightforward, but the main thing is you have to make everything portable. You have to make it not like fail nicely, so that whenever anything goes wrong, you give them a nice error message, so that when there's an error, okay, give them this message. At this time, there were invalid arguments or no teams data available. And then from there, you have to like write a bunch of like form documentation for, you know, license. You create a news update methodology. You give it a README so that people know how to use your project. Set up tests, write a vignette. Like there's a lot of different things that you can do, some of which are not required but are strongly encouraged. So for example, this is just a test for checking whether the whenever I run this function, it will return these columns exactly, so that I don't ever have a situation where I don't know what all the columns are, or whether the function runs at all every time I upload it to GitHub or CRAN or whatever. Okay, see, it's testing, passed these two tests. It wanted these two columns, and it wanted to make sure it was a data frame. And so basically you have to do a decent amount of beyond just like, all right, I have a function I've written that helps me do this. I have to add a bunch of, you know, like scaffolding around it to make sure that I can make it very easy for RStudio or R or CRAN or whoever like is managing your packages knows exactly what goes into each function every time you call it, because I could maybe want to call HoopR ESPN MBB conferences like this. And what this is doing, as opposed to if I had just loaded the package, it looks for exactly that function and doesn't load the entire package. It just loads the functions required for this function. And so that's the difference. And so like, that's what it's allowing you to do, make it super portable.
One of the other things that's very important is if you just put a question mark in front of the function, it gives you more information. We've talked about that in the past, but you want people to actually be able to use it. So if you don't teach people how to use it by using the help function or using the question mark, then they won't be able to do it. So when we've done question mark filter and it's popped up in that other pane, you have to be able to make those when you're making your own package as well. So Saiem wrote that one. Here's how you get all the ESPN conference names and team IDs. Seems pretty straightforward looking at it, but
there's like, this is what it looks like.
Yeah, you still have to make that.
Yeah, and so like, it's like a bunch of just, you have to learn what all the different forms are. Like, it's this documentation tagging. Like, it's very, once you get the hang of it, not that bad. And a lot of times you're doing the same exact things over and over and over again so that you can just copy it. And so here's what that actual function documentation looks like. Get ESPN conference names. That's what's happening here. And then it says author and gives you an example of how to use it. Yeah, whatever. Try ESPN MVP conference. Cool. Straightforward enough. But you can do a whole bunch more to save yourself time and effort. I wind up, repeating myself a bunch. I'm not a perfect example. There are many better package developers, but I seem to write a lot of packages. So there's that.
Awesome. We had another question in the chat from a B. Are there any packages for Olympic data? I'll take that one.
Exactly. Yeah, I was going to say.
Because so one thing I did over last summer was I did graphs for every day of the Summer Olympics. I'm going to try to do the same during February for the Winter Olympics. And I've already started to find data for different stuff, biathlon data. There's a different website that has like an API for Olympics that I will hopefully eventually make into a package. That would be a lot of fun. I don't know when I'm going to do that right now, help them with basketball and help them with baseball eventually. But over the summer, I'll probably find time and put something out there.
Yeah, man, I'm excited about that because like that Olympic data is super hard to get access to. Like we've tried and like there's not enough.
They're
enough
secretive. Like they don't want you to have it for no reason.
Well, it's not even just that. It's like, okay, a place hosts the website, and then what do they need the website for after the Olympics are over? They just wind up like removing the domain. And so all this data just like winds up disappearing. And you're like, what the hell? I can't find like historic Olympic records and stuff. Or like who all participated? Like ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't know what times they ran. Like, I just know who was in the participation pool. I'm like, come on, are you serious?
Yeah. If you're looking for, I know who you're looking for. I know you're looking for Bolt. So I feel like there's a track R package out there somewhere that you can maybe use to find data. I'm not sure what that does, but that might be a starting point. If that hopefully helps.
I was gonna do something. I just lost it, whatever. Anyway, it's, oh yeah, basically one of the other things that makes these packages a little bit more interesting than most is the fact that we all have data. Like every one of the packages in the SportsDataverse has its own data repository to actually allow for everything to like for the trains to run on time. Like basic, that's what they're really for. So what updates these is probably the other piece of this that like sort of solidifies the idea of what all you need to have to make sure you have a complete package. And that is basically what separates an API wrapper package from one of these packages is we have scripts that run every single day. Like this HoopR script runs 6 times a day for men's basketball and for WeHoop, we do it as well, same schedule. Do a bunch of data processing. And here's what goes into it. It's like, it's pulling the games. Like it first loads like the most recent season, pulls the games in, like writes the schedule, updates the schedule, and then does that for both like play-by-play, team box scores, player box scores, basically any of the data that updates every day for each game. And so it's basically running this on a schedule frequent enough that it catches everybody, most of the games on time, at least. Like hopefully by the next day, it is in, every game is in there. I just run it so often that I'm hoping there are no issues. Yeah, but that's about it. Like it's work, but if you have teammates and or mentorship, like from people that like, hey, you don't need to do that. You should probably try it like this. It's a lot more low maintenance. You don't have to worry about it as often. That's sort of the other piece of this like community that we've been building, is making sure people do things in a way that's like not super stressful for the one person who's trying to make this thing happen. Any other questions?
Yeah, any more questions before we wrap it up? Awesome. I'll take that as a no. Thanks so much for coming and sharing. I mean, I feel like we all learned a lot of things and a lot of different resources, even ones that I was like, oh, I did not remember that existed or did not know that existed.
Yeah, definitely check out the SportsDataverse website. It's sportsdataverse.org. It has most of the packages that are up there on there. I've like been steadily updating the site to make it a little bit more up to date with what's been going on. Basically, we've been consolidating around each of the 4 major sports. We're trying to figure out the best way to incorporate more leagues into the soccer domain. And now we're going to hopefully wrap up this NCAA package and we should be most of the way there. Like then it's like tennis and golf.
Yeah. Anyways,
Anyway, appreciate y'all. Like it was great talking to y'all for real. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
thank you. All right, I got one more thing I need to share before we head on. Our meeting next Monday is going to be in 111 Lamp Hall. So there's SAS Hall that we've been meeting in right there, literally right up the street, 111 Lamp. We do have a Zoom option probably, depending on what we do. We're in between one last intro tutorial model about like modeling, so how to use linear regression, multiple linear regression, that type of thing. Or we may just have a project work day. Does anyone really have a preference either way? Before I just like decide one or the other on like Sunday night, or probably a little bit before then, but maybe.